Hi guys, in this video we're going to have a look at how we find the equation of a straight line. So the first thing we'll have a look at is some of the most basic ones, but people forget them, is when you've got a nice vertical line or a nice horizontal line. So let's start off with the vertical lines. So when you have a vertical line, what we're doing is looking which axis does it cross. So if it's vertical like this one here, it's going to be crossing the x-axis. In which case, all we then do is see at what point does it cross the x-axis. In this particular case, it's -4. And all we do is we just say, okay, well, the equation of this line is x equals -4. It's simple as that. And if you think about it, if you were to pick any coordinate on that line, what is the x-coordinate going to be? It's going to be -4. So again, it kind of makes sense. Let's go for this one then. So this time I've got a nice vertical line going through the x-axis at 5. So x equals 5. This one here going through 2. So x equals 2. And this one here, which tends to trip people up, it goes through the x-axis at 0. So it's x equals 0, but as you might have already seen as well, it is the y-axis. Actually, the y-axis goes through the x-axis at x equals 0, so we call it x equals 0. But just be aware, it's also the y-axis. Same thing over here, as you probably guessed, if I have a horizontal line, it's crossing the y-axis. This time at 4, so it'd be y equals 4. This one at -3. So it's y equals -3, and this one here, again, y equals 0, but it's the x-axis. So y equals 0 and the x-axis is just the same line. So there's the basic ones. Tends to come up more when you're doing like reflecting or something like that, so transformations. But it's just a few quick reminder before we get on to some more of the tricky stuff. Okay. So let's have a look at some of the more tricky stuff. Like so. So hopefully you will remember from lessons that the equation or general equation for a straight line is y equals mx plus c, which is what you need to remember, where m, just m, not mx, just the m represents the gradient, which is just how steep the line is, or the slope, and the c, the number at the back, is where it crosses the y-axis. Okay? And whenever you get a straight line and asks you for the equation of a straight line, that's what you need to work out, the gradient and where it crosses the y-axis. So obviously where it crosses the y-axis is nice and easy. In this case it's 3. However, the gradient, that's a little bit trickier. And to work out the gradient, you need to know this. So to work out the gradient, it is the change in y divided by the change in x. Okay, so that'll become a lot clearer in a minute when I do this example here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work out the equation of this line. So I'm going to work out the gradient first. Now to do that, you pick two coordinates that are on the line. And when I say coordinates, I mean something like this. So I've got 1, 5, that's a coordinate, but something like this point here, where it's in between -1 and -2, we don't want that. We want it to be an exact coordinate. So 1, 5 is okay, and that one there, look, -1, 1, I could have that one as well. You can pick any two coordinates on here. There's many you could have, but I'm just going to pick those two. Okay. Once you've done that, what we do is we draw a right angle triangle. Now you can draw it above it or below it, it doesn't matter, but as long as you draw a triangle like so. And then all I'm going to do is have a look at the change in y. So we always go left to right. So from this coordinate to this coordinate, what's the change in y? Well, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4 up. And what's the change in x? Well, from this one to this one, I go across 2. Then all I do is put those values into this formula. So for this one here, m equals 4, which is the change in y, divided by the change in x. Obviously, simplify it. So 4 divided by 2 is obviously going to give me 2. So the gradient of this line is 2. So what I can do is I can substitute that into our general formula here. So y equals, I now worked out that m is 2, so 2x. And then where does it cross the y-axis? As I mentioned earlier, it crosses at 3, so it's just +3 at the end. And that's it. Okay, the equation of this straight line here, y equals 2x plus 3. let's have a look at this one. It's exactly the same strategy. I need to work out the gradient and where it crosses the y-axis. I'm going to do the gradient first. I'll write it down here. So I'm going to pick two coordinates. Again, that's a coordinate, not a thing in no man's land. So I've got 2, 2. That's a nice one there. I'm not going to use 1 because, look, that's in the middle of nowhere. So I'm not going to use that one. Oh, there's another one there, look. So I'll use that one. So -4, 1. Okay, but again, there's a few others on there you could have had. As long as it is a true coordinate, you can use it. Then I'm going to draw my triangle, like so. And from left coordinate to the right coordinate, what is my change in y? Well, I've gone 1, 2, 3 up. And what's my change in x? Well, from here to here, I've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So put that into our formula. What's the change in y? Well, it was 3. Divided by the change in x, which is 6. And again, you can simplify that. It's just a fraction. So 3/6 is the same as 1/2 if you divide both top and bottom by 3. Once you know the gradient, stick it in to the formula. Y equals, and we worked out m to be 1/2, x, and then where does it cross the y-axis? It crosses there at 1, so +1. Okay, so there's 2 examples, and we're now going to have a look at something just ever so slightly trickier, which are these ones here. So the process is still exactly the same thing, but you might have noticed the line is actually decreasing. So we'll have a look at what that does in a minute. But the strategy is still the same. You still pick 2 coordinates. So that was one there, and well, I'm going to go for that one there as well. So as long as you pick 2 coordinates that are on the line, it doesn't matter, it'll work. Then you can do your triangle. Now remember what I said before, you go from left to right. So how do I go from this one to this one? Well, I go down. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 down. So it's -9. Okay, if you're decreasing, we call it -9. And then the change in x, so from that point to this point here, or from there to there, but it's just that way across, it's 3. So in this case, the gradient, or m, will be the change in y, which is -9, divided by 3. And again, a little bit of simplifying. What's -9 divided by 3? It's -3. So you'll notice because it's decreasing, the gradient, the slope, is now a negative. Okay, so if you've got a decreasing line like so, and you get a positive gradient, you know you've gone wrong. Okay, if it's decreasing, it's negative. If it's increasing like the previous ones, it needs to be positive. Let's put it into our equation then. So y equals -3x. And where does this one cross the y-axis? It crosses at -3. So I put -3 at the end. Now, some people don't like using this method of having 2 coordinates. They like to go 1x across and see how far you go up or down. That's all very well, but in this particular case, it's very hard to see. And I'll illustrate that. So using the method of finding 2 coordinates, that's what I'm going to do now. There's 2 coordinates on the line. I draw my triangle, like so. Okay, so again, left to right, I'm going down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So -8, and then x, how many across? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the gradient here is -8, which is the change in y, divided by 10. And if you simplify that, you get -4/5 by halving both of them. Now, without using that method of using the 2 coordinates, that is very hard, dare I say impossible, to try and guess that's -4/5. So by using the 2 coordinates, it's much easier to spot the gradient. And then the rest of it's exactly the same. Substitute it into the general equation. So y equals -4/5 x. Where does this cross the y-axis? Crosses at 3, so +3. Okay, so a couple of things to remember. If it's decreasing, your gradient is negative, and obviously where it crosses the y-axis, just make sure if it's a minus, you put a minus there, and if it's a positive, you put a positive there. As long as you remember those steps, you should be okay at finding the equation of a straight line. Hope that helps, guys. Cheers.